In this video, we're going to be looking at part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. We'll have a look at 4 example questions from the test, and we'll have a look at 4 sample answers to those questions. The answers that I'll show you will show a very high level of English and are the kind of answers that a Band 9 student would give to these questions in the test. Let's just have a quick recap on what part 1 of the speaking test is like. Now, part 1 of the test takes about 4 to 5 minutes, and it involves the examiner asking you questions about yourself. Now, these questions are quite simple, and they usually start with questions about what you do. Do you work or are you studying? Or maybe some simple questions about your hobbies. But towards the later stages of this 4 to 5 minutes, the examiner will ask you some questions where they're trying to surprise you a little, making sure that you're not just memorizing scripted answers, that you can actually communicate well in English face to face with someone. So what we'll do in this video is have a look at 4 questions that focus on one topic that could come up in the exam, but it's a good example of this kind of surprise topic, and the way that you will see the answers are answering the questions is quite similar, and similar to a previous video that we had on part 1 sample questions and answers. We're just following a few simple rules when we give these answers, and I'll make sure it's clear to you how we're giving these answers. So let's start by just having a quick look at the questions. Here's the first question. What form of transport do you prefer to use? So we can see the topic of these questions is going to be travel habits. So your habits of traveling from one place to another in your daily life. So that first question, what form of transport do you prefer to use? Clearly, this is the type of transport you use on a daily basis. So that's the first question. Let's move on and have a look at the second question before we look at the sample answers. So the second question is this. How much time do you spend traveling on a normal day? So there we go again. The focus is traveling habits, but it's a slightly different question here, asking how much time you spend traveling on a normal day. Again, here it's clear that it is your travel habits, your daily travel. Okay, so not going on holiday or going far from where you live, but your daily travel habits. So that's the second question. Let's have a look at the third question. What do you do while you are traveling? So again, the focus is quite similar on your travel habits, but the question is slightly different. What do you do while you are traveling? So it's going to require a slightly different answer to the previous questions, but it's still focused on the same topic. Finally, let's have a look at the fourth question. Here it is. Do you ever have problems with transport? So again, slightly different, but the same focus about transport or your traveling habits. You see, all of these questions do connect, and they're focused on the topic of travel habits. So they do focus mainly on the present tense, something that is true for you in the past, the present, and the future. But there are ways we can mix up the tenses slightly in our answers. But generally, we're just using these questions in the answers, using vocabulary from the questions and also using the grammar from the questions. This is generally the rule to follow when you're answering part 1 questions. We want to keep it simple and quick. We want to show off our fluency. We're not worrying too much about showing off any really high-level vocabulary here. It's just focusing on communicating clearly and showing the examiner that you're confident communicating with them in English. So now it's time to have a look at some answers to these questions. And like I said, it's good to keep it simple, but the answers I'm going to show you do show a good level of English. They're the typical answers that a Band 9 student might give. So let's go back to that first question and look at an answer to it. So the first question was, what form of transport do you prefer to use? Let's have a look at the whole answer first. I prefer to travel by car because it means that I have my own space. Also, the buses and trains in my city are usually overcrowded. My car is much more comfortable. So there you can see the answer to that first question. It's not too long, but also it's not too short. If you remember from the previous video, we said that a 2-sentence answer would be most appropriate. So that's what we're aiming for, generally when we're answering these part 1 questions. A nice clear 2-sentence answer. And that's what you can see here. Also, you can see in the first sentence of the answer, they're focusing the answer directly on the question. They're not going off topic or losing focus. And we're doing this by copying keywords from the question. Well, the question is asking what form of transport you prefer to use. And you can see the answer begins with I prefer. So we're taking the you prefer from the question and just changing the pronoun, but keeping that verb the same, showing that we understand what the question is asking. I prefer to travel by car. So we've also given the type of transport they're asking for. We're not using the word transport, using the verb travel, and then giving a type of transport, car. And then we're giving a direct answer and giving a nice clear reason for this. And we're joining it with the word because. This is a good word to use once or twice, but not too much. Sometimes I have students who rely on this word when they're giving reasons too much, but here we're using it. But you can see after that, we just give a quick reason. So it means that I have my own space. So there's no questions, no vocabulary from the question there, but it's giving a reason that is clearly connected to the answer. Also, you can see here that we're showing off a bit of extra vocabulary and we're still just copying the grammar of the question. In the question, the grammar is present simple. That's the tense of the question. And in this first sentence, we're using the present simple tense. I have my own space. So I feel like this kind of answer, just on its own with that first sentence, would be okay. But it's good to show off a little bit more than this. So you'll see there's that second sentence. Also, so here we're giving an extra reason. And we're showing that by using that word at the beginning of the sentence, the word also. But we're giving another reason here. The buses and trains in my city are usually overcrowded. So that's the first part of this sentence. So it's just showing off a bit of extra vocabulary, a bit of extra pronunciation skills where we're showing that we can put an S on the end of plural nouns, buses and trains. These are things that the examiner will be listening for. Also, we're keeping the focus on present simple. We're showing that we understand it's about our habit or our routine. So you can see the word usually and a nice adjective there to describe the buses and the trains. Overcrowded, which means there's a lot of people, often too many people on these types of transport. And then I just explain in the final part of the sentence, my car is much more comfortable. So again, a more positive adjective there, comfortable, to describe the form of transport I chose. So it explains clearly why I chose that type of transport over the buses and the trains. So that's just the first question and first sample answer. But you can see there how we're just keeping it simple, using the question in our answer and giving a clear reason. Here we actually give more than one reason, but we're still just using 2 sentences. Let's move on to the second question and look at the answer for that one. So the second question, if you remember, was this. How much time do you spend traveling on a normal day? So let's have a look at the answer here. I probably spend about an hour and a half traveling to and from work. I travel during the rush hours, so there is quite a lot of traffic. So that's it. There's the sample answer. Again, it's pretty short and simple, but not too short. Still has 2 sentences. We're making sure in the first sentence we're giving a nice, clear and direct answer. The question is about how much time you spend traveling on a normal day. So you'll notice, again in the answer, I'm using words from the question. I probably spend. There we go. We're using the verb spend, connected to time. The word spend was in the answer and it's in the question. I probably spend, and then we give the amount of time. About an hour and a half traveling to and from work. So we give a specific amount of time. We show that we understand that the question is about the amount of time you're spending. And then also we're copying another word from the question, traveling. We're not bothering or panicking about trying to paraphrase the question here. We can do that in later parts of the test. And we make it clear that it is your habit of going to and from work. Some nice uses of prepositions there. So that's the first sentence, but again, we can always add a second sentence, just to show the examiner a bit more, but not too much. So a little bit of extra detail here about why it's such a large amount of time. I travel during the rush hours, so there is quite a lot of traffic. So you can see there we've actually repeated a word in the second sentence that we used in the first sentence. The word traveling, but we've used a different form of the word. There's no ing on it anymore, right? We're just using it as the first verb of that sentence. I travel. And then during the rush hours. Now, if you don't know already, the rush hours are the times when people are traveling to and from work. So early in the morning or in the evening after work. And then I just make sure the listener can understand that the rush hours are going to be very busy, or kind of showing that I understand what that word means. So I add, so there is quite a lot of traffic. Again, we're focusing on the present tense. There is quite a lot of traffic. I'm not going to use past tense here because the question is focused on the present. My habits. So that shows you another sample answer. Keeping it pretty simple, using the words and the grammar from the question and making sure we're giving a 2-sentence answer that's not too long and not too short. Let's keep going. We need to look at the third question now. So if you remember, the third question was, what do you do while you are traveling? Let's look at the answer. I usually listen to the radio or a CD. In the morning, I like to listen to the news to find out what is happening in the world. So that's it. The answer to that question again is quite short and simple, but it's still got two sentences. The first sentence is giving a nice, direct answer to the question. The question was, what do you do while you're traveling? So we've said what we do. I usually listen to the radio or a CD. We've got different verbs in the answer there. We've got the verb listen, but it asked me what I do, so I said what I do. And that verb fits with the activity that I do on the way to work. I usually listen to the radio or a CD. Also, we showed that we understand that it's about travel habits by using the word usually. That wouldn't be enough just on its own, though, with that one sentence. So we have a second sentence. In the morning, I like to listen to the news to find out what is happening in the world. So just a small reason for why we're listening to the radio. Explaining that we like to listen to the news. We're repeating that verb there, but it's just to make it clear and giving a reason. You can also see here a nice phrasal verb, which is find out. This basically means to know something that you did not know before, to kind of discover something. Now, this is the type of vocabulary that looks quite simple, but actually it shows a good understanding of English. We're using a phrasal verb, a verb plus a preposition. Preposition changing the meaning slightly of the verb. But it makes it clear as well, and we're using the right context. The news. Well, we watch the news to find out what's happening in the world or in your own country. So that second sentence is just giving a nice reason for why we listen. A nice, clear and simple answer there to the third question. Finally, let's look at the fourth question. Now, if you remember, the fourth question said, do you ever have problems with transport? So this is a do you question. So let's have a look at the way we're answering this type of question. Yes, as I said, I get stuck in traffic on my way to and from work. I used to get annoyed by traffic jams, but now I'm used to them. So, there are some similarities with this answer to the previous answers. Again, it's just two sentences, and again, it's focusing clearly on the question. But you'll see here straight away, because it's a do you question, I answer with the word yes. Now, of course, you could answer with the word no. But usually when we have this type of question, a do you question, it's good to give a nice clear and direct yes or no. Of course, you don't have to, but it makes your answer nice and clear. Also, you'll notice here that I'm making an effort to use a slightly different tense here. Just because for the previous three questions, we were focusing just on the present tense, and maybe we want to show the examiner that we can actually use other tenses. And this kind of question fits a little bit with this. Because, well, firstly, in the first sentence, I'm going to repeat something I said before. And I want to make the examiner aware that I'm doing this. So I use the phrase, as I said. Well, we're using the past form of the verb say, as I said. And then I repeat what I said before. I get stuck in traffic on my way to and from work. Something I forgot to mention before a little bit was this phrase we're using here, to get stuck in traffic. This shows a good knowledge of how we use the word traffic in English and the way we can fit verbs with the noun traffic, to get stuck in traffic. It's a very common phrase we use in English. And then I repeat, on my way to and from work. So again, that's the first sentence. It's nice and clear. It's showing a bit of variety with grammar. It's not just copying the grammar from the question. But also in the second sentence, you can see that we're actually showing that we understand the question is connected to the past. Do you ever have problems with transport? Suggesting that, well, it's asking me about the past, but it's keeping the present simple form of the sentence. But you'll see in my second sentence, I just mentioned I used to get annoyed by traffic jams. So this shows that this was in the past. I changed the verb form. I used to get annoyed by traffic jams. So it shows that this was in the past. But then I make sure I show what happens now. So I use the word but and then now to show I'm talking about the present. But now I'm used to them. You can see the different use of the word use here, right? I used to get annoyed is showing it's about the past, but when I'm saying I am used to them, it means, well, I'm comfortable with that situation now. It doesn't get me annoyed anymore. I'm used to them. So there we go. Again, you can see it's a nice, simple two-sentence answer, but a little bit of trickery with the grammar and tense in that final answer there. Just to show you, we don't always just have to rely on the grammar of the question. It's just a good habit to have. When you're answering part one questions, you really want to copy vocabulary and grammar from the question so you can keep the answers simple for you to give, and you can show the examiner you really do understand the question and you can focus on those questions. But of course, you can be flexible with this and show off a bit more if you feel confident in doing that. But copying it does help you to show off your fluency a bit better. And of course, in later parts of the test, you can show off maybe higher level vocabulary and more complex grammar. So there we have it. We've looked at the 4 sample questions and the 4 sample answers for the topic of travel habits. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did find it useful, then don't forget to give it a like. And also, if you want to make sure you don't miss any future videos on similar topics and also other parts of the IELTS test, then don't forget to click the subscribe button. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and see you again in the next video.